Hi everyone, my name is Old Gamer Joe, co-founder of Media Moogle. Media Moogle is dedicated to bringing video games, game music, and indie games and developers the love and recognition that they deserve. Free yourself from the shackles of mainstream gaming coverage and check out some of our wonderful content at MediaMoogle.net. It's time to say goodbye to the echo chamber and join us on this wonderful campaign to give the voiceless ones in this industry a voice again. MediaMoogle.net for all of our content, or YouTube.com/MediaMoogle to check out some of our great video coverage. Onward, our work has only just begun.
What's up, Duderinos, and welcome back to the Game Addicts podcast, a show where I talk about the modern and retro video games that I play and collect, as well as dive deep into some of my favorite game stories, characters, and lore, all that jazz. Welcome back to the show. So good to be with you here today. It's been a minute since I did another episode, and life kind of gets in the way of doing some podcasts sometimes. That's the way it is. I'm trying to keep back going into a normal schedule as we get going here. I might actually shift the show to just air bi-weekly, just to make room for the rest of my life and other projects I got going on. Because I was trying so full-heartedly. We're gonna do every week, and then this past week it just wasn't able to happen. So week off. Do apologize to everybody who was waiting for this episode. Well, I got a request for a deep dive. Now, as I've said before, I am going to be doing more deep dives. I've done the Final Fantasy VIII deep dive. I've done the Last of Us deep dive, and I hope you guys have really enjoyed it. But the next one, I actually got a comment through Podbean requesting Final Fantasy IX. And that was from Demonic Dragon 21. So I said, absolutely. That was a game that I wanted to do anyway. And now I've got an excuse to sit down and do it. Now, I must say that, doing a deep dive on Final Fantasy, on any of them really, is kind of a daunting task, especially one like 9 that has so much. Even within this recording, I guarantee you, I'm going to forget stuff. I'm not going to say everything that I even want to say. I've taken a lot of notes and everything that I could possibly think. The reason why FF8 it came so easy to me, and I probably missed stuff in that one too, is that I had played it so recently to recording that. Like within just a few weeks, I had finished the remaster that had come out. I haven't played 9 in quite a few years now, but it is one of my absolute favorites. Final Fantasy IX. For anybody out there who's thinking about playing a Final Fantasy, they clicked on this. Okay, what's about Final Fantasy IX? Why this one? Why is he talking about this one? Man, Final Fantasy IX is one of the unsung heroes of the Final Fantasy series, without a doubt. This game, yeah, I feel like it gets overlooked, or it had got overlooked. And in the more recent years, a lot more people have been coming to bat for FF9 and telling all you guys, no, you guys need to play this. The reasoning for that is that, in my opinion, fact, really, it released about a month. In the States, at least, it released about a month after the PS2 back in 2000. You had October was the PS2 launch. You had all these cool graphics, all these new games. And in November, in comes Final Fantasy IX on the PS1. And so I feel like a lot of gamers were already moving on to the new system. And meanwhile, the diehard Final Fantasy fans, we played it, but a lot of the casual people who might have played 7 or 8 and didn't have a huge love for the series, they kind of maybe moved on, and they missed over it because FF9 was out of those 3, 7, 8, 9, was the least selling of the 3, and by no means is that indicative of the quality of this game. And I want to just bury that forever. No, this game is, in my opinion, probably the best Final Fantasy game they've ever made. Now, I've expressed that before, probably on this podcast, but I've also expressed that 7 is my favorite. Well, I mean, it's like, you know, like when you're thinking about like, you know, well, I mean, I can like other forms of pizza, but there's always that fallback, you know? So, you know, you have your favorite flavors, but it's like, no, man, no, that pizza over there, that like, it's like if you go to Chicago and you have this bomb ass, deep dish pizza, and that's like the best pizza you've ever had. Well, does that mean that you're never going to order from like, you know, your hometown or, you know, a local restaurant like your favorite pizza at home? No, absolutely not. FF7 is my favorite Final Fantasy game simply because of the way it makes me feel, the memories that I have of it. Is it nostalgia? Yes. But is it also a great game? Yes. I personally feel when you're talking about the best Final Fantasy games, your top 3 are 6, 7, and 9. Now, those can be in any order, really. I mean, there are people who die on the hill for FF6. There are people who die on the hill for FF7. There's people who die on the hill for FF10. But also think about that. A lot of people, a whole generation of gamers got the PS2 and their first Final Fantasy was 10, just like their first Final Fantasy was 7, like mine. You know, but I also recognize that FF9, Final Fantasy 9, is probably the best Final Fantasy they ever made. And it shows on so many levels. This game is so deep. This game was the first game to do something that no other Final Fantasy game had done before that. And that was to have a living, breathing world. When you walk around FF9's world, you have NPCs. You have, you know, people walking around. And almost every single one of these characters has a name, has something they're doing. They live in this world. You know, everything, even from the kids. Most of the kids have a name, or at least they have a specified, like, you know, name. As far as like either they either have like a characterized name or they have like a description name. It's like, you know, pigtailed little girl, and that pigtailed little girl has her own character, her own way of talking. This game was able to make you feel like this world was lived in. Unlike, you know, FF7's a great game, but there's not a lot of characterization with the NPCs. They're just there, you know, and like, okay, this dude's here, this dude's there, and they're, you know, okay, guy walking around over there. In this world, even when you fly around, and on like the first disc, there's a scene where you're in an airship and you don't really get to control it, but it's like flying, and you see other airships flying and landing and all that kind of stuff. Other people get around in the same manner, and it just makes it feel like there's so much more going on here than just what's going on with my characters. But this game deserves to be celebrated. It deserves to be heralded. It doesn't deserve to be overlooked in any shape or form. You know, the story is really freaking good. Even if as far as story goes, you know, I mean, Final Fantasy is no stranger to having a convoluted plot. This plot's a little convoluted and it takes a little explaining, but it was really well done for the most part. So what to talk about first with this game? I'm going to talk about graphics. Even though graphics don't really matter to me, you know, like as I said, I love FF7, and then it's blocky as heck. I love the old FFs, they're sprites. But, you know, I'm a retro gamer too, but the graphics for this game hold up today. Even more so if you have access to like the PSN version and you can play it on a PSP or a Vita on like a smaller screen. Like, it looks phenomenal. And I think that's a testament to what they were able to accomplish on the PS1. I mean, this game pushed the PlayStation 1 to its absolute maximum. There's no question about that. There are some things that were going on. This game was pushing so many freaking polygons that it even caused like problems with some people's PS1s. So like the system just couldn't handle it, and I didn't have any problem myself, but man. So the graphics on this game, the character models are pretty much the same from the field version to the battle screen, which is, they started that in FF8 really. But in FF8, the thing is that they went super realistic with their character designs, and everybody was almost like a stick, straight standing up forward, And in this game, they kind of went back to the more varied character design, like more deformed, if you want to say that, but more cartoony in a way. But also they had been able to work on and get down the like the emotives of these avatars for these characters, where like they're able to make them move, even though like their face doesn't change. The way that they move, all these different animations they have, along with the words on the screen, because this isn't voice acted. You're able to tell the emotion behind everything. And that's another thing. How well the game was translated, how well the game was localized for our country. You also had dialect in some aspects. For you, if like Conde Petit, where all these dwarves are, it's like these guys are speaking with like a Scottish accent, and they were able to get that through, with you just reading the words. It's almost like reading a really good fantasy book, where the author has taken time to think about what that sounds like and how it would look like, so they want to portray that to you in your own head. And it's like when you read it, it's like a little weird, but you get it. These guys have a different dialect. This was the first game to really do that. It's like in FF7, Kate Sith speaks with a Scottish accent or whatever, or at least we finally hear that when we've watched Advent Children and Dirge of Cerberus. But in the main game, there's nothing to really indicate that whatsoever, as far as the English translation. So this game, as I said, it made it more living, more breathing, more immersive, I guess is the really best way to say it. And this game really is the culmination of everything that had come before, because there were 3 Final Fantasies around that time being in development. There was 9, there was 10, and there was 11, and each one of them were a completely different kind of game. When you think about it, FF10 was the first new Final Fantasy on the PS2 and what it could do. So the development for that game was a completely different beast. They had better graphics, they had voice acting, they had things that would take the whole series to the next level. And 11 was an online game, like an MMO. That was completely different, So FF9, what they decided to do was, let's make a Final Fantasy like we've made Final Fantasy. Let's not push the envelope as far as where we're going gameplay wise. Let's develop our own new system here that takes inspiration from old, and it works. Because me personally, I love that old school Final Fantasy feel. The way that they did it was top notch. And this was like the last game directly involved with Hironobu Sakaguchi. He's the guy that created the series. I want to say he wrote the story. He didn't direct the game. I can't remember who directed the game. I'm sorry. But Nobuo Uematsu, this was the last core Final Fantasy that he did the music for. He did some songs in 10, some big songs in that. He's worked on 11. He worked on 14, like the online games. He's working on the FF7 remake, because he did all that music in the original game, so he's there to help, bring it up to the next level for the remake and orchestral and all that stuff. I listened to some of that yesterday, and some of it was bringing me to tears because of how well it sounded and how well it translated from the original soundtrack to the new. But this game, like, they were pumping these out, dude. Think like FF7 was 97 in the States. 8 was 9, or 8 was 99. 9 was 2000. So like within a year, we had a new Final Fantasy. Like they just launched. Like they were pumping them out, and he was doing all this music. And from what I understand, there was about 109 songs that he made for FF9, and not all of them were used. Like when you buy the official soundtrack, there's actually songs in there that never got used. And one thing that he was able to do here, it kind of reminded me of Star Wars in a way, where the Star Wars theme, the main Star Wars theme, you hear variations of that throughout the movement, throughout the score. You have the main intro theme. You have the credit version of the Star Wars theme. You have Luke's theme, which is like a more like emotional waving movement. And you hear that over and over again. You have the big the chase scene. Like I just, when they're in the Falcon and they're trying to get away from the Death Star, and it's like you hear that. It's like it's a variation on the theme. It's like, okay, I remember that. They bury it in your head. Well, he did it here too with the main theme of FF9. A lot of the other songs that you hear throughout the game carry that into it. Like you have was it Melodies of Life? So Melodies of Life is the big song that they made for like the ending credits and everything. And they wove that into the overworld theme. They wove it into other things. As you go through the game, you hear it over and over again, and it's like that. And FF7 kind of did the same thing too, with some themes that they did. With Sephiroth's theme, there's a part of that in like a song that's like 5 years ago, Nibelheim. And then there's some parts with the main overworld theme is like in other places too. So he did a really good job with the soundtrack, but it also really just broke him down big time. And he decided to kind of step back from the series. Man. Touching back on graphics, I kind of deviated a bit. So the graphics look absolutely amazing. As I said, the character models look fantastic. The background art on the original PS1 was so detailed and crazy, and how they would you would have different drawings for different versions of the background art for different parts of the game. So if you had a city that was fine and walking around, and later on it got attacked and it was in ruins, they'd have two different versions. They would have one in ruins or in a state of repair, and they'd have the original one. But what I want to say is that the game has since then been transported to Steam, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. And this game does suffer, just like what I mentioned in the FF8 deep dive for the remaster, that the backgrounds are blurry. The upres that they did on the backgrounds don't look good on the new consoles. I'm just going to say it. I bought FF9 day of release of the remaster on the PS4. I was so excited. And I get into it, and it had the same problem. It had that. And I'm like, oh, man. Yeah. This is noticeable. And what makes it even more noticeable is that they've touched up the character art. Just like, in FF8, they redid the character models. So FF9 doesn't look that bad. They just kind of they make it look really good, and the battle screens look really good. But that just makes the background stand out to me. It's like having a sore on your thumb. It's like you're looking down, and you just see it, and you just keep picking at it, because it's like, man, it's like once you know it's there, it's kind of hard to unsee it. But the fact that they have brought the game forward and playable on the modern consoles, as I said, Xbox One, PS4, Switch, Steam, you guys can go get this game and play it. And it just because the background art looks blurry doesn't mean that this is a bad game. This is a great game, a fantastic game to play. And you can get it. You can also get the original PS1 version if you want that. You can go find that used at an old game store somewhere, or on Marketplace, Facebook, whatever. But if you have access to a PS3, and you can download the PSN version for $10, or maybe wait for a sale. They go on sale all the time, and you can get it there. And that's basically the PS1 version, just digital. So if you can't track down a physical copy of it, which you should be able to, it's on the PSN. And then if you buy the PSN version, if you have a Vita or a PSP, you can transfer it because I don't think you could get on the store anymore on the PSP, but you could transfer it from your PS3 to your handheld and take it on the go with you. And that game looks phenomenal. As I said, that game looks phenomenal on a smaller screen because, I mean, it just when you take an older game and you compress it down, it makes it look even sharper. So, what's next? The mini games. So, FF9, much like FF8 and 7, had mini games, had other things for you to do in the game. Now, FF7 had chocobo breeding and racing. It had stuff you could do at Gold Saucer, like the snowboarding, the submarine mini game, the getaway chase on the motorcycle mini game. You had some other stuff that you could do. Oh, and the battle arena. I mean, so they had like a version of that. FF8 had the card game, Triple Triad, and I mentioned in my deep dive of FF8 how much I love the card game, Triple Triad. In fact, that version of that playthrough, I grinded more, well, at some points it was grinding because I was trying to get like a higher weapon on disc 1 before I could, but I just played the card game, and I actually I focused more on playing the card game than I did playing the actual game. And because I did that, it set me up even better if I would have went out and drawn magic and everything, because you could, do all kinds of stuff with it. FF9's mini games, I feel, are lackluster. It has its own card game, and I do not like it, like whatsoever. The card game in FF9 kind of gets its roots or start from the FF8, but FF8, man, it was just done so much better. There's they have a bunch of different list of cards. I feel like the FF9 version of the card game is just, it's essentially rock, paper, scissors. Even if you have a high powerful card, there's so many factors that kind of go into the fact of whether or not you win or lose that I don't really feel like it is worth the time to invest into. And you also, as far as I'm aware, and I could be wrong, but I don't think that I am. And that is that you really can't do anything else with the cards. It's just there. It's just something else for you to do. Where like in FF8, they actually there's this whole extra, thing for you to do with the card game where you can take items, you can turn cards into items. You can then turn those items into magic, more powerful magic. If you bust it really hard, you can get the Quistis card early on, and if you actually learn the right skill with the GF, you can take the Quistis card, item mod it into Samantha Souls. You get 3 of them. And once you get a higher, what was it? Forbid Magic Refine or no, it's High Magic Refine. It's gotta be that High Magic Refine. You can refine that into like 66 triples per Samantha Soul, and triples junction into it's like one step to one step to one step to one step. But once you learn it, it's like, man, I've now got myself set up for like the rest of the game almost. And that's just by doing this little bit of work with this card game. And the card game is fun to play. Whereas in FF9, I don't feel like the card game is that fun to play, and you don't really get that much reward out of it as far as like being able to change or do anything in game. One of the other mini games is the frog catching mini game with Kuena. I didn't understand this for a long time. I just went around catching frogs. And the more frogs that you catch with him, I believe, does that get him his ultimate weapon? It's something like that. It's like you have to catch like 100 or so frogs with Kuena. And you can only do it in these certain areas, in these certain swamps. And so when you go to these swamps and you do that, if you eat all the frogs, it'll take forever for the frogs to respawn. But if you leave one male frog and one female frog, then the the pawns will respawn because they can mate, and it's like they don't tell you that, but it's kind of common sense. But as a kid, I'm just like, eat frogs, and it's something that they don't tell you, and it does get a little frustrating just to sit there and run around this little same area with this like swamp pond area, and you're just trying to jump on frogs. The chocograph is, that's okay. The chocobo hot and cold item seeker thing is annoying. I've done it once. Out of all my playthroughs, I've only ever sat there and done that one because that's how you get to. I mean, with the hot and cold, and then the chocographs. That's how you get to Ozma, which is the super optional boss for the game. So, but like the hot and cold, like trying to find your chocobo pecks at the ground, trying to find items, and it'll say different quah for how close or far away you are, and quite literally, you could be sitting there right next to it and be pecking, and the pixel right next to it, and you won't get it. You got to be standing in the exact right spot, and I do find that annoying. Any other mini games I can think of? No, I think that's it. I think that's it for mini games. Mini games are not my favorite part of this game. Thankfully, the rest of the game is that much of an awesome game that I don't even think about those as if those are the only negatives to say about this game, and like a lot of that stuff is just optional, especially except the card game. The card game in FF8, the card game is 100% optional. You never have to touch it. You can play the game in an entirely different way and enjoy yourself. So, and I really like that. FF9 forces you to play the card game at a point in the game. And I don't like that because I don't like playing the damn card game. One thing they added to FF9 that they really haven't done since too much, and they've never done it before, is something called the active time event. And that is when you're playing the game and you're going through the story and you're walking around the screens with your dude, and you go to the next screen, a little bloop will pop up, and it'll give you an option to look at other events that are going on around the same time. And that's with other characters in your party. Maybe it's someone else that you know, and even another town. But it's extra little bits of just story and even lore sometimes. It really adds to character development, in my opinion, because you get to see these characters more out of perspective, because the whole story is pretty much told from Zidane, the main character's perspective, except for when you do split up and the few times that you do in the game. But being able to see that, like, Zidane doesn't get to see that. He doesn't know about that. But we, as the observer, as the gamer, get to see that. And I really feel like that just adds so much. And I wish that we could have that in like in all the games. Because how cool would it be, when you're walking through, you're like, and you and your character split up, and then you get to see, like for example, like when you go to Golden Saucer in FF7, and you guys split up for the first time, and you pick one person to go with you. How cool would it be to get to see some other things with like a couple of the other characters paired up and went somewhere, and you get to see some hijinks that they get into. I really like that, and that's what happens in this game as well. And as I said, they really haven't done it since, and there are some people who I guess don't like it, but I absolutely love it. And the only thing that I don't like about it is that some of them are really specifically activated. You have to be in the right time in the right spot to do it, and then you can miss them. But they also don't really affect the overall story of the game either. If you miss them and don't view them, it doesn't really affect it. So let's talk about the battling system. The battling system in FF9 is really good for the most part. I do have a few nitpicks, and that is that the overall flow of battle and the animations are slow. And there's really no way to speed it up. It's just we're moving really slow. It takes forever even on the quickest setting, like it seems like the ATB bar, the active time battle bar, to take your turn just takes forever to fill up. And then when you finally do go, sometimes some of the animations are so long and drawn out. You're like, man, especially for just like small nothing fights, you're just like, come on. Now that doesn't mean it's not fun. It just means that I can take some time. The leveling system, oh man, I really, really like it. How it works is that each character can equip certain weapons, armor, and everybody can equip the accessories. But, like Steiner, he's a knight. He can wear, helmets and, heavy armor and, all that kind of stuff. Well, when it comes to like Zidane, he can't wear that. Vivi can't wear that. I think Freya can. But so each item or weapon or armor or whatever has abilities tied to that item. So, not all characters can learn all abilities, but like Zidane has a leather hat that he wears. There might be something that he can learn off that level, off that leather hat, but Vivi might not be able to learn that, but he can still wear the hat, if that makes any sense. So, for example, if Vivi has something that allows him to learn fire, well, he's a black mage, he can learn fire. Zidane cannot learn fire, but he can still equip that item. However, there also might be an item that where they both can learn it, and you might be tempted to buy more than one of those, so that way each person can learn it. Also, if Vivi, has an item equipped that allows him to learn fire, and so say that's his staff. His staff allows him to learn, fire, blizzard, and thunder. And then he has a hat that also teaches fire. If you equip both of them, he'll learn it twice as fast, because how you learn abilities is through the AP through battle. And if you have two of them equipped, AP gets assigned to each one. So, if he has a fire thing on two of them, he gets 2 points for fire instead of just one. And that's pretty cool. I really like how that stacks. You can just go through and you can learn it. You can also, after you learn the ability, you don't have to use that item anymore. You can change it to something else or learn something else. Or you can do it for a specific thing. It's like, oh, I know that I'm in the ice cavern, so I need a fire thing here. It's like, and say I don't know that yet. Well, and I'm learning, say I'm learning blizzard. Well, blizzard's not going to do me any help in the ice cavern, so I can switch it to fire for now, and we can finish learning blizzard later. You can do that. This also incentivizes you to not sell your equipment or hold on to older equipment. As far as like, I might get some more characters, and they might have stuff to learn off of this as well. Or I haven't learned this one yet for this one item. I'm learning this one, but after I'm done with that one, I'll actually switch to the weaker weapon or weaker armor, just so I can learn that one thing that I missed. Now, stuff like magic, like I said with Vivi and Garnet or Dagger, they are like your mages, and Aiko. So not everybody can learn magic, but everybody can learn something called abilities, and you have like different abilities for different people. Not everybody has the exact same list, but you can then assign ability stones, and each one acquires a certain amount of abilities. Like cover requires 8, so like if you put cover onto Steiner, then he'll start taking damage. There's a percentage chance that he'll take damage for another character. And as long as you have that on him, he will do that. You can also put, as you level up, you get more ability stones to be able to assign, so you can have more active as you go. Certain areas might also be, smart to have certain ones on and off. Like you have certain enemy types in an area, and you have abilities that will actually make you stronger, do more damage to those enemies, like for bird, so they're called killer abilities. So like undead killer, bird killer, beast killer. Whenever you come across an enemy type that is one of those, when you hit, you'll automatically like double your damage or do like a crit damage. But then you still have the chance to crit. So it doesn't automatically crit. It gives you just the boost damage from the crit, and then you can crit on top of that. So some really cool things that they've done with the abilities in this game, and I really like it. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Magicite from FF6, where you equip something and then you learn it, and then you go and then you learn something else. But this is like all your items are like that. This doesn't give you the freedom like FF7 gave you, where you're able to just equip materia and have pretty much anybody do anything that you want as far as your magic and some of your abilities go. But because in this game it's more limited with your character type, like Zidane a thief, so he's the one who can steal. Like there's some other characters that can as well that you come across in the game, but as far as your main party characters, he's your thief. Steiner's your warrior, Vivi's your black mage, Dagger's your white mage, so on. Freya's your dragoon, Kuena's your blue mage. It kind of goes in right along those lines where each single character has their own abilities and uses, and they can learn in their type, but you can't really customize that. So depending on your liking, that might like turn you off, but it doesn't really for me, because the game really balances it pretty well as far as the game often doesn't give you a choice on who you can take with you until you get to a certain point in the game. This game is almost like deceptively on rails, because you really are on rails. You do have some freedom, and you can go like explore some places, but there's like a really key point in the game where then it opens up and you can do whatever you want. Until that point, no, you're on rails. Like I remember somebody was trying to argue and say that FF9, like he liked FF9 because of the freedom and all that stuff, and that's why he was saying that's why he hated 13, and 13 was just like walking down hallways, and I'm like, well, FF9 is really linear as well. It just disguises it to where you feel like you're in this big open world, you can do all this stuff, but in reality, it's like when you leave Limblum to go to Burmecia, there's like 2 places you can go on the way to Burmecia, then you have to cross through a place to get to Burmecia. But where you're going is Burmecia. Like you're on rails. And that's fine. As long as the story's engaging and, you're able to play the game and you have these characters and it doesn't inhibit you so much. As long as it's engaging, it doesn't really bother me. So what else is there to talk about? I mean, I'm kind of saving the characters for last. I'm also not really going to be diving too deep into summarizing the story, because I did that with FF8, and I kind of just felt like I just zoomed through it so fast that you really don't get to enjoy it. And I did it all from memory. And as I said, I haven't played this one in nearly as like proximity to me recording this. I would love to replay it, but I just didn't. I don't have time to sit there and replay the whole thing just to do this podcast. Unfortunately, it's a long game. But so I will be talking about some of the big story stuff as I talk about the characters. So some of them may be a little bit out of order, but be that as it may, when I get to the characters, that's what I'm really going to be talking about. Some of the big story parts. The Mist Continent. So when you first start the game, you're on a place called the Mist Continent, and this place is terrifying because the mist it makes animals and even people more aggressive. And the mist first appeared in lore, like, I don't know, like 1,000 years. It's probably not 1,000, but a lot of fiction is like 1,000 years ago this happened. Well, the mist appears, and a lot of the nations that were on like the lower level, not like above the mist, like you can like up in the mountainous ranges or places that are going to be above the mist, a lot of them just died off because of because of all the violence, because of all the monsters and like the animals and all that things that the mist just spurs aggression. And there's a reason for that in lore, obviously, but also the airships run off of mist. They are able to power their engines with mist. Cool. All right. With that, that's how we have airships. Now, what is the mist? Essentially, the mist are souls, like dead people. When their soul leaves, it's kind of like the life stream in FF7. When you die, your soul or your life force returns to the planet. In FF9, the life force or soul gets cycled through something called the Ifa tree. That's what now. In terms of pronunciation, it's IIFA. I've heard people call it Ifa. I've heard people call it Ifa. Heck, when I first saw it written out, I thought it was a lowercase L. But it's a uppercase I. It's It's Ifa. It's Ifa or Ifa. I've always called it since I learned it was an I call it Ifa. But tit for tat in these old FF games, and until we have until they remake FF9 and they decide on what the hell it's going to be called, it's like Mako and Mako for FF7 for crying out loud. Until they tell us what it is, we're going to pronounce it the way we want to. So when you die and your life force or soul leaves your body, then it gets cycled through to go through the Ifa tree. And what it's doing is that the roots of the Ifa tree, see, I'm going to say it like both ways in this whole damn thing, I guarantee you. The roots protrude through the mist continent, and the mist comes out of the roots. Now, there's a reason for that in story. There is a reason, but that is just like crazy and terrifying to me. If I could just put that blunt, to have that, to have this tree that is basically sending dead souls, and that energy or that mist makes us more aggressive and it can incite violence, and we use that to power our airships. So instead of getting recycled and put back through like kind of like a reincarnation type deal, they're just pumping through, and we're doing all that with it. So, characters. We've arrived to the characters. Now, I'm actually using the guide. Now, I wonder if I should talk about the guide before I talk about the characters, because I'm using the guide just to sit here to make sure I don't miss any characters. And I'm using the hardback reprinted guide. Now, the official guide that was released for this, like a long time ago when they had like the Brady Games guide or the Prima Vista guides or whatever. I remember having the one for FF7 back in the day. I remember having it for FF8. And I never got it for 9 because I have my own story about how I got and beat 9 that I'll share later. But the guide for FF9 sucks because they were trying to push their website, playonline.com or whatever. And it absolutely sucked because you'd buy the guide. You went out and spent money on a book, on a guide. And you'd be going through, and there would be like, for more detailed information on this boss fight, visit play.com or playonline.com. So it would omit information from a paid guide. That is absolutely ridiculous. Now, on the podcast, on this very podcast, man, probably like 100 episodes ago or whatever, my local gaming shop had some guides. Now, I'm not a huge guide collector, but I do have quite a few that I'm really glad that I do own. And, my shop usually has a markdown for like $5 a piece, right? Well, there was this hardback, still sealed collection, and they re-released these for like $100 or something because it's square, but it's Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9, and all the guides are on a hardcover. You got lithograph art with it. You have a ribbon bookmark, and one thing that the reason FF7 and 9 are the exact same guides, just reformatted, right? They look a little different, but it's the same exact guides, same content. 9 is the reason what makes this significant is that they added in all the information that was omitted from the original guide. So when you were told to go to play online in this one, they just put it in the damn guide, which is, good. So the first character that we see that we are introduced to is Zidane, and Zidane he's a member of this gang, Tantalus, and they are like a theater group, and they are on their way to Alexandria to perform a play for the princess's 16th birthday. They also, very beginning of the game, it's like, we're going to go kidnap her. So we're like, what the heck's going on here? Zidane is a character who's, I'll be honest with you, as far as main characters go, he had to grow on me. I wasn't really hooked into him from the get-go. And, maybe it's because when I was first playing it, I really, part of me identified it with Cloud and Squall. And then people are like, well, they're moody and brooding. It's like, I was a teenager, damn it. But no. Zidane grows on me. He kind of comes off as like a womanizer. The thing is, though, is that he isn't. That's like his mask. That's like what he does to help keep people at bay. And who he is on the inside is really deeper than that. He wants to help people. And he comes across that way, especially his friends and people that he cares for. He uses daggers, or he can also use like a double-bladed weapon, like a staff double-bladed weapon. And Zidane, he has his own background story that, to be completely honest, doesn't even come into the main light of the game until near the end. It's like he doesn't know where he came from. He doesn't know like his hometown. He doesn't know any of that stuff. All he knows is that, that Baku from Tantalus found him when he was really young and raised him up, and he's been with the family ever since. So we'll touch back on Zidane a little later. Vivi's the next character that we meet, and he is a black mage. And Vivi, we first meet him because he's coming to Alexandria because he got a ticket to go to the play. Only it's not a real ticket, right? So, like they sneak in to go to the play. Him and his little rat friend, Puck. That's another thing that we're going to talk about is like some of the characters and species and different things when we kind of dive in a little bit later on. But Vivi is a black mage. Now, what are black mages? Black mages are weapons made. They are literally weapons made from mist. Now, he doesn't know this. There's a lot he doesn't know, but Vivi's only like a few months old when we meet him. And he's one of the rare ones that got sentience and is able to think for himself and do his own thing. He pretty much pretends to be normal, if he can. And that is like that's what makes it so interesting. Like when people don't think twice about looking at him, because people don't know the black mages at the beginning of the game at all, but they don't even think twice about, man, you're weird, and that's because everybody in this world looks weird. Like you have hippos walking around, you got like rat people walking around. So Vivi is a black mage, so he's just magic spells, fire, blizzard, ice, the thunder, all that kind of stuff. What I really like is that he can actually do a really good job of teaming up with Steiner. With Steiner can use magic sword, where he can add in elemental damage to his attack by teaming up with Vivi, and they can both use MP to do it. It's pretty cool. So Steiner is the captain of the Knights of Pluto, and he's pretty much kind of like a bumbling idiot, but he's also very, very devoted to the queen and princess. It is a sworn duty to protect the queen and princess, and that makes him pretty unbearable to deal with for like most of the game, because he's always like commenting about how like the princess, she'll be in danger, blah blah blah, and he really doesn't like Zidane at all for a good chunk of the game. And what I like about Steiner, though, is that he has sworn this oath. He serves the crown, and over the course of the game, he starts coming into whether or not this is what he really wants out of life. and it's slow. It's like it doesn't even really get until like I think it's like disc 2 when he really, because he doesn't doubt the queen at all. He all these thoughts, he doesn't think for himself. A lot of the things that he does, he serves his orders, he does his job. It's not his job to think. And it's like a moment, I think, in disc 2 where like it's him and Dagger, and they're trying to go steal the Super Soft, and all this news is coming out saying that Queen Braun is behind these attacks and all this stuff, and that she's lost her mind. And he starts thinking for himself for the very first time. And he shoves it away. Nope, I can't think about that. And that's definitely a defense mechanism, because I feel like for him, if he were to sit there and really focus on the messed up part of this crap, there's a lot to unpack mentally there. Steiner's a much more complex character than we give credit for. And, he's a character that can definitely get annoying with how, like, just persistent he is with, like, the princess. But for the most part, his character arc, I really like it. Now, there's one spot kind of in the middle of the game where it's after Queen Braun dies, and the princess is going to take, she's going to become queen. And it's like the characters, that's like almost like the midpoint of the game. And the characters, excuse me again, man, I keep talking, making myself yawn. The characters are now, they're in this mode of like, okay, now what? And, it's like Zidane, he's kind of fallen for the princess. That's a character that their romance is something that I'll talk about in a little bit. But basically, he's just like, yeah, she's gone. I don't know what to do. Like, we were together, everything was great. Now she's up there, and she wants to go see him, or he wants to go see her. And whereas Steiner had started to kind of come around as a character for a moment there, he goes back to the old Steiner where he's just like, no, you stay away from that brigand. Like you're a princess and you're going to be queen. He's just a common thief. And she's like, they're our friends. And he's like, I don't like that little hint, that little like stutter with him, because it almost is like, I can almost explain it though with Steiner, because with Steiner, I really feel like for that moment he goes, okay, all's normal now, we're good, back to normal. Where like he was going through this character change and he just hits brick wall, boom, cut it off, no more. I don't want to think anymore. Even though he's gone through all this stuff, and he sees that all these people who he's judged aren't what they are seem to him, or seem aren't what they would seem. And for Steiner, I really feel like he just cuts that off, because there's a point in the game where his progression continues. It's like at the end of the game when Zidane's like, I'm gonna go, and I don't know if I'm gonna come back alive. He tells him kind of like, no, don't, because it's like, please don't go. Like I'll go with you. Like at that point in the game, Steiner's like, no, dude, I'm standing with you. It's like, I have respect for. He gains respect for Zidane for all the things that Zidane has done for all of his friends and for the world to save it. He has gained so much respect for him to the point where he's willing to, no, you're not going alone, I'm going with you. And Zidane's like, no, you're not. And Steiner's like, you have to come back. It's like, I haven't yet made up my mind whether or not you are the one for the princess or not, like to be with. And that's to hear him say that at the end of the game compared to like him at the beginning, where like he is like basically thinks Zidane is just a piece of crap. I really, as I said, I really enjoy Steiner's character arc. Princess Garnet Till Alexandros, the 17th. The princess. It's ironic that on her birthday, and they're going to do that little kidnapping thing, disguised as a play. She wants to be kidnapped. Take me with you. I need to get out of here. I need to go see my Uncle Sid. It's funny because her Uncle Sid is the one who hired the kidnapping to begin with, because he was, because the whole story kind of kickstarts before like the game even starts, where like things are kind of rumbling and things are going on, and you know, the thing about the princess is she's a white mage, but she's a summoner. There was a whole summoning tribe on another continent. She isn't the real daughter of the queen. She's an adopted daughter because their daughter had died, and they kept it quiet, and they found this other girl who looked just like her, and they just adopted her, and she became their daughter in place of. But you know, you really don't get into summoning with her or summoning at all until like disc 2. It's crazy how like this game, you know, like in FF4, and they have that summoner village with Rydia. It's like, you know, you kind of start getting some summons early on, or you know, getting to see that. In this game, it's not the case. In fact, their plan, or Queen Bronze's plan, is to wait until she turns 16. Then it's safe to extract the summons from her, forcefully, mind you. The reason why they wait till she's 16 is because the effort could kill her, and they're going to use them as basically weapons of mass destruction. Which, if you know the source of the story, if you know what happens in the story, they're making the black mages, and they want these eidolons. Everything's going at exactly the right time, and she's looking to take over the entire continent. The Alexandrian Empire will then grow, and it will take over everything. And that's exactly what they try to do. And she's being pushed by someone to do that, who is pretty much the main villain of the game. But Dagger, or the princess, you can rename her later on as Dagger to conceal her identity when they're talking to her, just because that way the normal common folk won't like be like, princess, you know, like, whoa, who's that? No. So you can so Dagger is her default name, because it's like, I have this dagger in my hand. That was the most convoluted kind of rename thing. It's like, what is this? Oh, that's a dagger. She goes, okay, my name is, and then you can put anything you want. So this dagger can be in her hand. She goes, I want to be like Steve. It's like, wait, what? My name's Steve. Call me Steve. Okay, Steve. All right on. So, I mean, this was the last game that you could actually rename the characters. In FF8, they only allowed you to rename Squall and Renoa, and then you can rename the summons for reasons that we don't even know. Like, we don't know why they didn't allow you to do that. But in FF9, they went back to the old wave where you could rename everybody. And I really enjoy that, because even though I don't do it, but as a kid, you're like, I mean, of course you go like you know, all your friends are in the game. It's like, this is your character and this is your character. It's almost like, in a way, it's almost like you're playing like kind of like a D&D type thing, where it's like, all right, this is your character, this is Bob's character, this is Steve's character, this is Robert's character. So who's the next main character we meet? Freya Crescent. She is a dragoon. She is a rat person, and rat people exist. Part rat, part people, kind of like crab people, right from South Park. She was so she's from Bermesia. You know, the crew comes across her in Limblum, and Bermesia is one of the big 3 kingdoms on the Mist Continent. You have Alexandria, Bermesia, and Limblum. And Bermesia is being attacked by Alexandria. And Freya's like, we got to go. And the main party's like, yes, we do. And the princess is like, I got to go speak to my mom, you know, alone. And so she does her thing. Her and Steiner go off because they think that they're going to go to Alexandria to stop all this. Meanwhile, Zidane, Vivi, and Freya take off for Bermesia when they wake up from being put to sleep, because basically Dagger's like, I don't need their help. And meanwhile, yes, you do. Along the way, they pick up Kuina, a really, really weird person / creature. So Kuina is genderless. Their entire clan species is genderless. So like when you play the game, they always say his / her. So like pretty interesting that like they actually have a character, all the way back then, like 20 years ago, that transcended gender in a game. Especially with everything that's happening now, and inclusion of different things in culture, is becoming more of a thing to give people representation. This is all the way back then. Granted, this is a kind of a unique character. Kuina is a blue mage, loves to eat frogs, loves food, loves cuisine. As far as character arc for Kuina, I don't know if there is much of one, other than wants to go out and see food. So when you how Kuina learns blue magic is enemy skill. If anybody's ever played FF7, enemy skill materia, they use the move on you and then you learn it. Well, in this one, blue magic works as Kuina eats the enemies in battle. They have to be injured to a certain point, and then Kuina eats them, and then either learns nothing or learns a move. And there's a whole thing that you can do. Look at all the abilities for Kuina to learn. I'm actually using the guide to go look at those, because White Wind is always very, very, very good to learn in pretty much every version of Final Fantasy. Kuina, here we go, I found it. Blue magic, you can learn Goblet Punch, level 5 death. Hopefully you don't hear my kid out there just wooing, being really loud. White Wind, so yeah, restores HP of all party members. White Wind, you can learn that really early on, and it becomes really helpful for you because you don't necessarily have a dedicated healer. Now, granted, the game is set up and designed with a difficulty where if you don't have a healer, you're fine. You can use potions. They give you plenty of opportunity to earn gil and buy medicine or anything like that. But also, you don't have to pick up Kuina. You can actually wait until you have to go to like the outer continent and then later on the story to get Kuina. You don't have to get Kuina now. But it's really recommended that you do, because Kuina is an extra person, hits pretty decent, and then you can learn some blue magic along the way to kind of help out, to have an extra character. What character is next as far as the main cast? Is it Ayako? Yeah, Ayako. So Ayako, you don't meet Ayako until pretty well into disc 2. And she's a summoner of the same tribe as Dagger. She's the only living one there. She's a little girl. She's like 6? So she's like, I can summon and do all this stuff. And Ayako kind of becomes infatuated with Zidane. Now, granted, she's a little kid. She's got this crush on Zidane. And then that's kind of her story. But her story, including her in the game, ties in Dagger into the summoning tribe. And it really opens up the background as far as who her character is with Dagger. Ayako, what I really like about her is that, people often forget that she is a little kid. She is, really young. And even in the epilogue of the game, which I'll talk about at the end here, you get her character arc as far as finding a family, because she doesn't have a family. She was her grandfather raised her until she was really just before we meet her, and then she's living with Mughals, and the Mughals are taking care of her. So Amarant is the last character that we get, and he is a bounty hunter. He is supposed to be an assassin type dude. As far as the kind of character he is, ninja would be kind of it, because he has a throw ability, and you can throw any item, I think, any weapon that you have in your inventory, but you can buy certain items that are just meant for him to throw. And you can cause some non-elemental physical damage with those. He also learns something called Flare. and there's some skills that he can learn to kind of help you out with his trances. Now, I haven't talked about trance yet. Trance. Oh, man. So trance is like Limit Break. And they Limit Breaks first came in FF6 as desperation moves. And then in 7, you had a limit gauge. And when you took damage, it built up, and it replaced your physical attack with a special move. And you could learn more as you go along the game. FF8 kind of took it back to a desperation attack, where if your HP got to a certain percentage, you would have a higher chance of activating a limit break, where it would also replace your regular attack with a special move set or anything, like, because you had different combinations of stuff with doing button input for Zell, or doing the Renzuko-ken thing with Squall, or Blue Magic with Quistis, or whatever. But with 9, they called it Trance, and it's like you have a meter that builds up, kind of like your limit break. And when it maxes out, then you go trance, like a super form of yourself, or like you have your character. And for some of them, like for Vivi, you can do double cast black magic. For Dagger, you summon an Eidolon, and it does the move, and then it will randomly do more like really quick attacks, like the same like basically. If you summon Bahamut and shoot Mega Flare, whop, it'll do the whole like animation summon, like whop, it'll hit it, and then after you attack a few more times, it'll just go whomp, it'll just show like the actual final attack animation, and it'll just keep attacking with Mega Flare. Steiner just hits like a truck, like essentially that's his trance. He hits like a damn truck. I think he might get some actual sword art moves, but I think you can use those moves anyway. In main battle, I might be remiss by that. Freya gets like mega jump, where she jumps, because she's a dragoon, you can jump in the air, and then she can avoid damage if anybody's going to be doing like, character damage or all damage anybody, and then she can throw her lance and come back down. Well, in trance, she jumps up and just stays there and just keeps throwing lances. Kuina, as far as trance, I'm trying to figure out what exactly trance does for the for Kuina, if I could speak. And I want to say that trance for Kuina helps out with the eat ratio. I could be wrong by that, but it also like increases physical attack and all that kind of stuff. I cannot remember straight up what trance does for Kuina. For Amarant, you get like some different abilities. For Zidane, you get different abilities, and they're called Dine, and those kind of come into play. Like basically they cause physical damage to all enemies, and some of these hit like a damn truck. So, but they're really story specific. As like, how can he all of a sudden do all this cool stuff in trance? Well, there's a reason in lore for it, and we'll get there when we talk about the main villain, because Zidane is tied to the main villain. What other character? We can actually talk about Kuja next. I guess he's the main villain. Kuja, you don't even meet Kuja till the end of Disc 1. As I said, Queen Braun is kind of like in this mode of trying to take over the main continent, but she's being pushed by Kuja. He's basically a quote arms dealer, and he's basically pushing her to do this and really feeding into her greed. And greed is something that really doesn't do well with her. In fact, it's been said that greed is what really transformed her body into what it is. She became a glutton for greed. Is basically. But Kuja is the one behind the whole damn thing. And what is Kuja? Well, Kuja's not from this planet named Gaia. He is from another place called Terra, and Kuja is basically an angel of death. Where now I'm going down the rabbit hole, because Terra is a world that needs to feed off of basically another world and its souls to exist. And that's, they were trying to basically merge Gaia and Terra together to make a new Terra. Well, the merger went really wrong. And there are certain things in the world that are representative of that merger. There are some places like Olivert and the Eiffel Tree that are Terran, that came from that merger. The reason why we see some of the mixed races were that mixed species, the rat people, the hippo people, the animals mixed in with people, are because of that merger. It literally merged their DNA together to make a whole new species of people. And Kuja was somebody sent to speed up the process of souls, gathering souls. Then him trying to incite Queen Braun into doing all those things was part of that. Now, he was being incited by somebody. So Kuja was made, right? I don't know if you guys know this, but Kuja and Zidane are technically brothers. And they are known as genomes, and they are supposed to be like empty vessels for the Terran souls to live in, the genomes. But Kuja and Zidane are a little bit different because they are advanced models. And they were created by Garland. And Garland is essentially the dude working in the shadows. And he is an android type being who looks like an old man. And his mission was to revive Terra, because the people of Terra are now living in stasis. And he's been working for 1,000 years to revive Terra. And at some point, Kuja goes a little bit rogue. And Garland needs to try and take over. Now see, Zidane was meant to take Kuja's spot. And Kuja loses his ever-loving crap when he finds out that basically he is mortal just like anybody else, and he will extinguish. Just like the Black Mages. The Black Mages have a limited time span of a year, for their life. And it is really, really cool to see that story play out, because Vivi has to come into terms with who he is, why he is, and his own mortality. And we get to see that from his point of view, and to know that he was created for a certain purpose, and that he is chosen not to be that. And we get to see that again with Kuja when he realizes that he is nothing more than a basically pawn and puppet. He's not in charge. He's not in control. And he loses his shit, essentially. Pardon the language. And we also kind of get to see that again with Zidane. When Zidane finds out where his origin is, it kind of messes with him a little bit, because it's out of the blue, here I am. I'm this angel of death that is supposed to be taking Kuja's spot to finish the job, a 1,000-year job of reviving Terra. And he pretty much says no. And Garland's like, do you really think that the soul within you is one that one that you have is one of your own? I can take it from you. And he does. There's a point in the game where Zidane gets his soul basically taken from him, and he's pretty much giving up the will to live. It's like, nobody cares about me. I'm no better than Kuja. Basically all these things, all these revelations are coming in on him. He lost his soul, but all of his friends stand with him. Like, no, we're with you, and you're not that. We have seen it, and he goes, you know what? You're right. Eventually, he finally sees through it. He's like, all right, no, you're right. But Kuja loses his mind and pretty much says, no, I'm not going to be this empty shell of a person to do your bidding. I'm going to kill you and the entire Terran race, and decides to use the power of trance to do so. And Kuja, when he goes trance, destroys the entire planet of Terra. And like effectively all the living Terran people that were in stasis. Thankfully, the other genomes that were made were able to, they were able to get them out. The heroes anyway. But when he goes trance, Kuja's technically, dude, he destroyed a freaking planet. So I would say that makes him stronger than Sephiroth, right? It makes him like stronger than almost any other villain. He literally just Frieza, one finger shotted Terra and destroyed the planet. Now, granted, Terra wasn't necessarily the most healthy planet to begin with. That's like saying, like, oh yeah, I killed a bear. Well, that bear was dying anyway and could barely move. Well, I still killed it, but still, he still killed a bear. He still destroyed a planet. And Kuja wanted to do the same thing to Gaia. He wants to destroy the planet of Gaia. He's like, screw it. I'll kill everybody and everything. But the thing is that to be able to destroy and kill Terra with all these helpless people in stasis, and they're all pretty much dead. Garland's not real. He's like real, like he's an android. And now we're here, and once the party defeats Kuja, he kind of gets a sense of his own mortality, and he doesn't want to die. It's almost like, it's like talking big and bad and say, I'm going to do this, and then you're there and you can't. It's like you're going to jump off a building. It's like, I'm going to do that. Then you get up there and you realize how high you're really up. And it's that internal gut feeling of, I shouldn't be doing this. I'm now scared. That happens to Kuja, and he can't go through with destroying the entire planet. But the main boss of the game, the final boss, is Necron, and it's like this planetary crystal, like how I said, like how the souls of Gaia cycle back through, so does like the living soul of the planet cycles back in through on a galaxy level. And after all of this planetary crystal has decided that we all should just die. Yeah, right. Okay. What I don't like about this is that it comes out of left field completely. In FF7, Sephiroth is the villain. And you go in there, and sure, you fight him 2 times in 2 different forms, but you fight Sephiroth. In FF8, the main villain is Ultimecia eventually. So you go fight Ultimecia. Then she summons her thing. But in the end form of Ultimecia is Ultimecia. In FF9, and even 6, Kefka, crying out loud, you go fight Kefka. Even after he, you go through the world of ruin, you go back, you find everybody, and you're like, no, damn it, we're gonna stand up and we're gonna beat you. You go fight Kefka, and this one you go fight Kuja and you defeat Kuja, and then you fight Necron because he decided that nope, everybody on this planet should die. It just comes out of left field to me. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe there's some stuff that was cut out. I know that there's a ton of cut out content in this game as far as story. There just wasn't enough time to put everything in. A lot of that was explained like in like the Ultimania that got put out, like all this kind of more detailed story, and they had to kind of simplify it, and that's why in a way it's kind of hard to explain. But I just don't like this boss. Like not the fight. The fight's the fight could be tough. But, like you always need the big tough boss battle at the end. But the part that I don't really like is how it just boom, it kind of comes in and there's no really rhyme or reason for it. And then everybody, so after they defeat Necron, everybody goes through. That's when I said the whole thing about the ending about Zidane. Basically, Kuja is able to save them and get them out before they are killed by an explosion or by the tree collapsing or whatever. He's able to use some part of his power to teleport them out, and so Kuja saves the party. And then when Zidane realizes that it was Kuja that did it and that Kuja is going to die, Zidane can't bring himself to do that. That's the kind of person that Zidane is. He goes, nope, I can't let him die. Even though hey dude, we went and we stopped him. We did what we said we were going to do. I can't just let him die here. And Zidane goes to him and doesn't. Honestly, he doesn't save him because Kuja's dying anyway. But at least he didn't get to die alone. And what I really like is that Kuja, they get to have a moment together. Where it's like, Kuja's like, did they make it? And Zidane's like, yes. He goes, good. Here in his dying moments, Kuja realizes all the wrong that he was doing. And, he's not necessarily redeemed because he did so much bad. But it's not like he's redeemed and he gets to live on and live a normal life. In his dying moments, he decided that what he was doing was wrong, and he decided to change that. And I like that because it makes him one of the more interesting villains of the series. Then we have the epilogue. The epilogue is kind of confusing when you first play it. Now, in the Japanese language, written language, when it's written, it's kind of written with a tonality. It's like, okay, this dialogue is being written from the form of a child or an old man or something like that. So when this is written out for the epilogue, you don't know who's talking. Some people might have figured it out. I know I did not. I had no idea who was talking. I thought it was Zidane. Zidane literally was near death. The Ifa tree closed in on him and Kuja, and I'm like, oh crap, these are his dying things. And then I realized that, of course, that's not true. No, it's Vivi. Vivi is on his deathbed. He's only going to live for so long. And whether or not I like to think that he wrote a letter and had this letter sent to like all of his friends, because like that just makes sense to me. Man, the ending of this game gets me every single time. It is so emotional, and I tear up every single time that I get to the ending of this game. It's got to, with the whole ending with Vivi and him passing on and him being at peace and him thanking all of his friends for the journey and all that stuff, and how much he's learned from them and how much he'll carry with him to the great beyond or whatever, and how much he has strived to pass on himself. And each character has like their own epilogue within Vivi's narration. Freya, her character arc kind of revolved around like number one, trying to save Burmecia from Queen Braun, but also her love story arc with Fratley, which I think is hilarious because with these kind of like cross species people, like the hippo people, Hippal. His name is Hippal, and then there's a moment where when you first meet Freya, Zidane's kind of joking with her and like acting like he doesn't remember her, right? And maybe he really didn't for a second, but like he said, "Oh, I know who you are. You're like Rachel." He calls her Rachel because she's like, oh my gosh. But Fratley, the name of that just makes me think of Michael Flatley. And there's a point in the game where they do this river dance type thing for a ceremony where like Freya joins in with some of the Burmesian and Clarion people, which they're all rats. And they're doing like this river dance, and then there's this legendary Burmesian hero, Fratly. I'm like, really? Fratly? Anyway, they were in love at one point, and he went away and never came back, and he lost all of his memories. He doesn't remember who Freya is at all, but he remembers his undying loyalty to Burmecia, and that's it. So they fall in love again and are together in the end, in their epilogue. But he never recovered his memories. I actually like that. That is tragic. It's like, I have you back, but you don't even remember what we had. So Freya gets back with Fratly. Kuina becomes a cook at the castle, I think, or like carry on's like with his or her quest to be a better cook. Steiner, there's a character that I forgot to talk about, Beatrix. Beatrix is like the commander of the Alexandria military and has a very similar arc to Steiner, only the fact that Steiner was gone when a lot of this stuff, the orders were coming down from Queen Brand to kill and go invade, and he was with the princess, who ran away. Beatrix was there, and she went through all of it, and she carried through all these orders to kill all these people and invade and do all this stuff. And she did it because it was her orders. But it's something that she harbors, and it's something that she hates about herself, to a point that when everything's all said and done, she's going to leave. And she's going to retire. She goes, I've done all this terrible crap. And Steiner doesn't want her to. And because Steiner kind of falls in love with her, and she kind of falls in love with Steiner, but it's nothing that they ever really state for each other until that they're at the end, where it's like Steiner's like, please don't go. I never wish to lose you again. And then so she stays, and they end up together, and that's kind of cool. Aeko's epilogue, where she's with Regent Sid, Dagger's uncle or adoptive uncle, whatever. He's the head of Limblum, and he's the guy that makes like all these airships, typical Sid, right? But so there's this whole storyline with Sid where, like, when you first meet Sid, he's been turned into an oglop by his wife, who caught him cheating, and he doesn't have his right mind, and he can't make new airships without Mist because he's been turned to an oglop. And then they try to fix it, and he gets turned to a frog, and then she's able to use her magic and change him back eventually, once he kind of confesses his love for her and how wrong he was, and how she realizes that she was wrong too. A part of me thinks that some of that infidelity was possibly because of some infertility issues. Now, none of that is ever stated in the game, but they adopt Aeko. As I said, she's like 6 or 7. And, in the epilogue, the theater troupe Tantalus are coming back to Alexandria to do another play, and everyone is going. Everyone's going. Even Amaranth, the big loner dude that doesn't want to be around everybody. It's like that. Like, I'm a loner bear that doesn't like to be bothered by other folk. He's that kind of tough, lovable guy he's not even lovable. He's a tough dude that doesn't want to be around, but he slowly accepts the fact that he needs people, and he kind of becomes friends with these people, and he opens himself up to the fact that you can have friends. So even he's going. But in the epilogue with Aeko and Sid and Hilda, that's Sid's wife, they're in the elevator, and they're going, and she's so excited to go see it and ride the new airship, and she calls him father, and he's like, what what did you say? And then she runs away, and Hilda's like, because pretty sure she just called you father. He goes, say it again. It makes me think that they wanted children and they weren't able to have children. That's not as I said, that's not a storyline in the game, but with how the characters react to that makes me think that that was a factor in their marital problems. Who else? I already mentioned Amaranth's epilogue is the fact that he's accepted friends. I mean that is his epilogue. Vivi's epilogue is the fact that he has had children, A lot of children. They never explain how or when or why, but he had children, and they all look like Vivi, and they all carry on his memories. And they're all going to the play. Okay, cool. So then we get to the play, and it's the same old Tantalus crew. I didn't go into really deep detail with these guys, but Marcus, Blank, Baku, Senna, and I'm trying to remember the girl's name. Oh, crap. I can't remember her name. She kind of talks like a cowboy. Can't remember her name. I'm not going to look it up. Anyway, they're coming back to do another play. And what I love about the epilogue is that it's all in-game graphics engine. And then it's like, and after each part of the epilogue that's leading up to the end part, it's being narrated in part by, or you get some narration by Vivi as his dying words. Then it gets to the play. And the play is something that started off the game, as I said, and it has to do with, was it Princess Rosa and Marcus? But it's like a princess wants to be with her lover Marcus, who's this down and nothing dude, and King Leo won't allow it. And it's kind of a parallel of the story of Zidane and Dagger. But what I like about it is that even though Zidane kind of had the hots for her and kind of flirted with her, that's not what the basis of their friendship and relationship was and became, because he cared about her and was there for her during some of her hardest moments, even when she lost her mother. He was there. He was there when he saw her mother attack Limblom. Like all this stuff made her lose her voice at one point in the game, which I also really like that, because when she loses her voice and you're in battle with her, if you go to have her use a spell or a summon, it'll just fail because she doesn't have concentration. But so the play goes through, and it's going through this scene, and the main character of the play, Marcus, is under this cloak, and it's Zidane the whole time. And he, instead of like bring my precious whoever to me, it was precious Dagger, whatever you name her, right? And she's watching along with everybody, and there's Zidane right there. He's back. And I don't know how much time has passed. I can't remember if it's ever indicated in the game. I don't think it is. But I mean, her hair grows back out because she cuts it at one point, and Vivi is gone. So I'm going to say at least a year. At least a year. It's got to be, right? However long it is, Zidane's been gone, and of course he's back with Tantalus, so that they have to be in on this. Part of me wonders if anybody else isn't in on this as well. So Dagger sees Zidane, and she's like, "Oh my God, that's Zidane!" So she goes to run and leave, and there's Steiner and Beatrix blocking the door, and then they open the door for her and say, "Go." And Dagger runs down the stairs. She runs out. There's a big crowd of people confused as all hell, like, what's going on here? I don't know. And then her falcon pendant or whatever, the part of Alexander jewel that is used to summon Alexander is a symbol of her old life, of who she was, right? It gets ripped off somehow and it falls, and she's like, "Oh, my necklace." And then she puts her hand like where it was, and then she says, "Screw it." And then she runs off. Because that's exactly, no, screw that. And then she's running towards the stage, and when she gets there, she throws the crown down and flies into his arms. And everyone's cheering. And she looks up at him, and he just kind of goes, "Hey." And then she's crying, and she's beating on his chest like, "Damn you, damn you." And everyone cheers as the scene kind of comes up, and it's a happily ever after ending if there ever was one for a Final Fantasy. I know that for FF7, it was like, oh man, what happened? For FF8, it was pretty much, happy ever after, but it was also not 100%. There's stuff that could be done with it. 10 they made a sequel, 10-2, 13 they did sequels. In FF9, I really don't think there's a way that you could do the story to where there would be a good, plausible sequel. That would be good enough because it wrapped up everything it needed to wrap up. And at the end, right before the credits, she's like, how did you survive? It's like, I had to come back to you. So when times got their worst, I sang your song. And that's that same song, that main theme of the game, Melodies of Life, right? And they do a scene where like he hears her humming it, and then it's like, wow, that's a beautiful song, you know? And then at the last line is our song. She says our song. And as I said, that ending gets to me every freaking time because it's such a great long story where it you know, unlike FF8 where the romance kind of comes out of nowhere, which makes sense for like a teenage young, you know, romance out of nowhere type thing, kind of an infatuation. But in this, it happens just seemingly so organically over the course. And like the romance part of it doesn't overtake the plot. It never once becomes more, it doesn't become the focus. You know, it's like he cares about her, she cares about him. They never go off and they never say like I love you or anything like that. You know, that's not part of it. The only big part of like, wow, these two are really going to be together is at the very, very, very end of the game. As I just said, right before he takes off to go save Kuja, and then the epilogue part, we get to see it. Wow. No, the guys, this game is absolutely fantastic and 100% worth all of your time. I remember getting this game. So personal story about this game. When the game came out, I wanted it, but I couldn't get it. Sort of. Like, well, I guess I didn't have the money for it. My dad's like, yeah, no, I'll go rent it for you. So I rented it, right, from like Family Video or something. And I pretty much, he said, are you done with it? And I kept telling him no, because I wasn't done with it. And I rented it for like a full week, you know, and that's all I did. I dove so hard into that damn game. This had to have been like maybe a month or so after it came out, maybe December. I think it might have been Christmas break. And I just played the crap out of it, played the crap out of it. And he got tired of renting it. It's like, damn it, I'm just gonna buy it for you if you're gonna like at this point. I'm like, yes. And he brought it home. So I actually got to look at the manual and, you know, see the case and all that. And I'm like, oh, I finally have FF9. All right, I'm gonna go back and play it. And I'm on disc 4. And that first night that I got it, I beat it. The first night that I owned FF8 proper, I beat the game. And then I'm like, that was so amazing. And then I restarted it and played it through all over again. Of course, now with the added knowledge, you know, of knowing what happens and knowing certain things, I was able to enjoy a lot of earlier scenes even more, because that's what's that have, you know, replayability is something that, you know, a lot of the Final Fantasy games, it makes it even better to know, especially when you, like, there's that big mystery of, man, what's going on with Queen Braun? Why's she doing all this? No, it's Kuja. And then you get to see some context clues in there that you don't really pick up. So, guys, that's about all I got. I hope I got everything. If I miss anything, you know, hopefully I didn't, but please let me know. As I said, I tried not to do the full summary of the story because I just felt like there's videos for that online if you want to do that or watch somebody play it, or better yet, go get it yourself. Because as I said, you can get it on pretty much every major platform. You can get it on the old PS1. You can play it on the PS3 and Vita and PSP. You can get it on the new consoles, PS4, Xbox One, Steam. You can probably even get it. I think it's on your like iPhone and Android. They got tablet versions or whatever. This game is available 100%. Go out there, seek it out, buy this game, play it. It is fantastic. Top three all-time Final Fantasies for me. If not, I mean, it's my favorite Final Fantasy. As far as, or it's my, I think it's the best Final Fantasy, should I say, as what I said earlier. My favorite is 7 due to, it's my first, man. I'm not turning my back on the first. I love that story. I love those characters. I love the materia system. But as far as, like, the best all-around world, story, characters, gameplay, other than the mini games, it's FF9, guys. So please go check out FF9. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. These deep dives are a little bit different where I'm not actually covering any news or having any conversation. It's just me talking about and gushing about a game. And I hope you guys are enjoying it. I'm going to do some more in the future as well. As I said, the podcast might be every other week or, just stick with me. I haven't really decided one way or the other. I think that's the way it's going to go, but I haven't decided when that's going to start. I'm just going to keep trying to release episodes as often as I can. They're probably going to be recorded on the weekend and released on Monday from now on, rather than during the middle of the week. And I may or may not do video. Obviously, with this episode, I did not do video for this one for 2 weeks in a row. For one of them, for last week's episode that I did with Nate, I was up at his house and I didn't have anything set up to do it, so we just did the old school podcast. For here, my game room is kind of in a state of disarray where we have like the baby napping in the back. And, I've got a bunch of stuff back here that I need to get rid of. And it's just, I don't really have a really good video space. I will be doing more video and be doing some more streaming as we go forward here. You can check that out on twitch.tv/GameAddictsPlay. You can also check us out on like all the social medias at Game Addicts Play. Facebook, Twitter, Instagrams. Our YouTube channel. Or your one-stop shop for everything that we do as far as video and podcasts. That's all over there. And, of course, go check out GameAddictsPodcast.com. For the main podcast. And we are now back on Apple Podcasts. So we had an issue with Apple Podcasts where the podcast got pulled due to an issue with the feed. For anybody who has already subscribed, they got the new episodes. It was really weird. But if you went to go search for the podcast on the directory, it was gone. I got it fixed and we're back up. So if that's where you guys want to listen to us, well, by all means, go for it on Apple Podcasts. We are pretty much everywhere. Spotify, as I said, Apple. We're on Stitcher. We're on TuneIn. We're on iHeartRadio. And then, of course, on Podbean, our gracious hosts at Podbean. The Podbean app is great, guys. Go check that app out. I think it's for both Apple and for Android. So it's a great it's a great podcast app outside of like the Apple Podcast app But I mean, as I said, we're on all the other ones too. So if you like the Apple Podcasts, stick with that. Or Spotify is really good too. So, guys. Until next time, I have been Brando, and I hope you guys have enjoyed another deep dive this week, and I'll be seeing you real soon. Until then, game on.